All right, happy Tuesday. I'm so excited. Last night I got a chance to have dinner with all my friends from the Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Watch for links because May, 1 month from now, will be Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And we will be the only festival here in Seattle that will be live streaming. So if you're looking for programming for Asian Pacific Heritage Month, on Saturday, May 6th, we're going to broadcast 6 hours of cultural programming. We have a huge lineup, which I'll share with you a little bit later. But we have large bands from Seattle. We have the Washington State's top beatboxer. We have cultural performance, martial arts performance, a dragon dance, and more. So all available to you, and you don't even have to come to Seattle. We will be in the Seattle Center, but if you don't want to meet us there, you can actually click the button, see us on Zoom or any one of these places where I live stream. Yeah. So speaking of engagement, I got to meet this gentleman, and he published a book in 2021 called Name, Place, Animal, Thing. It is sitting in my Kindle library, so I'm waiting to check out that book. It's an Amazon bestseller, and he's the CEO and the co-founder of a company called Stream Alive, and we're going to actually show you some really cool stuff on the engagement side. Let's welcome the CEO, Lux Narayan. Hey, Lux.
Hey, John. Thank you for having me. It's an absolute
Uh,
pleasure.
Thank you for joining us. Now, listen, you got some Escher in your background. Is that right?
Oh, yes, a long time fan of Asher. Absolutely.
And why are you a fan of Escher, if you don't mind me asking?
One is it's a constant reminder that however much I've tried, I can never figure out how to sketch. So there's still a bunch of things that are well beyond your capability. So it's a good lesson in humility that way. I
I
did
feel
go to
like
this
oh,
and figure I'm not good at it. Sorry, you're saying.
I feel like Lux. That's why I sing karaoke, right? Because it just reminds me how not good I am at it. But I'll still do it anyways. Oh
You're
my
a
god!
brave man. You're a brave man.
All right, Lux, where are you joining us from? I think you're on the East Coast, right?
I'm on the East Coast in a place called Basking Ridge, roughly about an hour west of New York City.
Oh, good. Yeah, yes, New York City. Yes, my son went to Rensselaer, which is kind of well, he's in Troy, right? Troy, New York.
Ah, yes. Nice
All right.
place. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Lux, for my friends who haven't got a chance to meet you yet, please tell us a little more about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I'm Lakshmanan Narayan, which is pronounced in about 18 different ways in the States. So all my friends call me Lux. Please call me Lux. I'm the CEO and a co-founder at Stream Alive. And I've been a serial technology entrepreneur for about 18 years now, and this is my third startup, and one I'm especially excited about. Our focus is on helping make live sessions, whether it's online like what we're doing right now, or whether it's in person, making them a lot more alive by giving the audience a voice. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about it, but Stream Alive.
And so, talk a little bit more about that, right? Feel alive, right? So, you have to take the presumption that sometimes online that we feel quote unquote dead, right? Which is, especially in the early stages of virtual, right? People felt disconnected, right? Zoom fatigue or video fatigue is a challenge and all these other things. So, where was that genesis of your idea to create Stream Alive?
So you mentioned the book, right? And so the book was kind of my personal solopreneur project, so to speak, between the last company, a company called Unmetric that I was running, that got acquired in the end of 2019 for various reasons, personal and otherwise. Took a break in the middle of 2020, and that was also, of course, when the whole world went into lockdown. And that's when I kind of got into writing the book. And it's very interesting how one thing leads to the other sometimes. At that time, my objective was, let me see if I can write a book and treat it like an entrepreneurial project. So I had targets, I had things I wanted to write every single day, and I had an entire workflow done. I just can't help myself sometimes on these things, right? I, I have to bring Excel into a creative pursuit, so to speak. And I know all the legit authors out there are squirming, but bear with me. So I attended a bunch of classes on how to write a book, how to edit a book, and how to market a book, because I didn't know the first thing about doing those things. Different matter that you might read the book and say he still doesn't know the first thing about any of those things. But let's keep that aside for a second. I binged on a bunch of classes and I paid and attended 6 different classes. And these were delivered over about 56 different live streams on YouTube Live, on Zoom, on Google Meet, on Facebook Live. And I saw a few patterns because the class sizes ranged from as little as 11 students to 1,200 students for the class on how to hack the Amazon algorithm and make sure Jeff Bezos shows you all his love, right? So for the 1,200 person class, which actually happened on YouTube Live, the chat was on fire. It would fly by faster than the eye can see, and no one had a clue what was happening. Right? And then you saw recurring patterns across all of these sessions. For example, there's one session where you had about 100 people, and another where you had a few dozens of people, where the presenter would open it up with a classic icebreaker like, "Hey, where are you all joining us from?" And everyone's enthusiastically typing, and then he eyeballs, "Hey, we got John from Seattle, we got Lux from Basking Ridge, and let's ignore the remaining 98 people who chose to give an answer to this." Right? And then
It's so true though. Like I took the time to chat, and like, where's my shout out, right? What about me?
exactly right, because if you were to mention something to me now in this conversation that we're having, and I totally ignored what you said, that would be pretty weird. But we excuse it in a group session because we are like, "Hey, so many people in the chat, how can we acknowledge them? It's humanly impossible," right? And that is the truth. It's humanly impossible. But that this is where connective tissue comes in some ways. Our previous startup was about working with APIs and data and giving insights in real time. And I saw a very interesting opportunity here where, can we give the audience a collective voice through the chat, right? And to some extent, I think I've been influenced by my grandfather, who actually started the first public speaking course in the south of India in a place called Chennai. This was way back in 1979. So God bless his soul, he was way ahead of his time. But he had the standard thing, right, where he tell you these little tips and tricks and say, every 5 minutes, ask your audience to either raise their right hand or raise their left hand or stand up or sit down, effectively eliciting a binary response on yes or no and reading the room and say 2/3 of the class agree or you guys don't agree, and do that every once in a while. And he passed before the internet was a thing, but now we have people chatting. You have so much more color to it. You got technicolor to it effectively. So how can we give it a lot more vibrancy and read the audience collectively? Became a thought that I was noodling a lot. Got in touch with my old co-founders from the previous company, and I spare you the whole trials and tribulations of what led to Stream Alive, but that journey is what finally led to where we are at this point.
Oh, of course. Well, we're gonna have to show this here. Hold on one second. I was actually give me 1 second here. I'm gonna show this. I do want to know. Tina is joining us online too, so that's the good news. Is that Tina is joining us. Before I show this demo, because I'm actually going to mock up this demo just slightly differently. So Lux, why don't you tell a little bit too? What was your guiding principles for creating Stream Alive, and like one or two of your best stories of like actually having this work, like see it work inside of a meeting?
I think the guiding principle was pretty simple, right? It's rooted in just human empathy and inclusivity in a way. And we take it very literally, saying when you include the audience, things change. The guiding principle is just, 3 sentences. I see you, I hear you, I acknowledge you. When a presenter does that with their audience, tells them that he or she sees them, hears them, and acknowledges them, something powerful happens. There's a certain bond that transcends the fact that we are across bits and atoms across the internet, and people feel a lot more connected. So that's really the guiding principle. I mean, how do you tell the audience, I see you, I hear you, I acknowledge you?
Well, and now let's go ahead and show people. So here I've done this piece. Okay, so this is my chat here to the right of me, and this is Stream Alive behind me. So Lux and I are going to do a couple chat assignments. Okay, number one, Lux, please chat where you are calling from. So mine is easy. I'm Seattle, Washington. What? So if you see the purple dot up here, right, that's me. Okay, Lux just said Basking Ridge, New Jersey, which is right over here. Okay, now let's do some other places. Favorite place to visit, Lux? That is at least in the lower 48, because I don't want to zoom out to Hawaii. Let's see. So favorite place would be, oh, here. Well, this is my college town. This would be Santa Barbara, California. Bam, purple dot again is me over here on the left-hand side, and you chose Austin, Texas. Why do you like Austin so much, Lux?
Been a fan of live music for a very, very long time.
Oh, you're a fan of live music. Okay, great. So now let's just go ahead. We're going to speed chat, Lux. A bunch of places that you have visited, right? So here's one: Stockton, California. Lodi, California is my hometown. I just went to Satellite. Let's see if I can actually spell this. Satellite Beach, Florida, right? And so imagine basically Lux and I are the audience here, and we could put all these things. And so, talking about Lux's challenge here, we can acknowledge everybody at least visually, even if the chat completely blows up, right? Utah, Atlanta, right? Let's see. You can even put Mexico in here. So Cancun, I think you could put Cancun and recognize it. So this is a really cool piece. So what it's doing, just so you were clear, it Stream Alive has an account inside of this meeting, and it's able to read the chat, and it takes the chat and then reads it into and interacts with this website with all these different interactions. So Lux, yeah, how did you come up with this particular version of idea? I mean, we were talking about that that you saw the challenge here, but what led you to, dropping a kind of, I guess, like a bot into a Zoom meeting and saying, let's grab all the chat and do something, right?
So I'm actually going to segue that from my last comment that I put in response to your prompt. By the way, I love how you demo it. We're just taking notes and classes on how to demo our product from you. Okay, so thank you for that. I've got a lot of help. I already bought the book, so I've got we're going through this, and this is mandatory reading for our team. So thank you for that as well.
Whoa! Wow! All right. Well, if you want bulk orders, I'm here for you, Lex.
So let's look at my last comment out there, John. I don't know if you noticed, but in response to where do you want to go, I actually said I want to go to Miami.
Right.
And so I wrote those actual words. I want to go to Miami. And at that point, Stream Alive picked up Miami and kind of plotted me exactly there, right? Which is the reason I mentioned that is it works with NLP. And the reason that's important is I found that there were a lot of things that were out there that were forcing people to behave non-human. Let me give you one of my pet peeves on that. I've attended so many Zoom webinars where I've been yelled at, and the whole audience has been yelled at because, and I'm sure you'll relate to this, because of one very simple reason. The presenter has activated the Q&A tab, and they've activated the chat, and they've very specifically told people, hey, put your questions not in the chat, put it in the Q&A tab, and a lot of people keep putting it in the chat.
Yeah, because they're used to chat. Like chat is the more so. Like I've stopped using Q&A for that reason alone. I think it's more natural for the attendee to just focus on one place, right? Like having chat and participants already is challenging enough. But then when you add like breakout rooms and Q&A and something else, and then people are just like, they're like, there's too many places, right? I give up. So I really agree with that. Why fight the way people work, right? Let's find more natural ways for the technology to work with us humans who are already, like chat already is kind of a stretch from our natural form. Like we don't sit around in a in-person meeting and all chat to each other. Although we used to love to pass notes, right?
Exactly.
So there's some hints of human behavior, and that's why chat, I think, has become so valuable in virtual. It definitely replaces to me the sidebar where I lean into Lex and I go, this speaker's amazing, right? Or something like that, where we can do that and not disturb the room. Because on a virtual meeting, I do that and everybody can hear it, and now that's not adding to the meeting, right?
Very, very true. I mean, I couldn't agree more on that, right? So with I'm actually going to go on a bit of a tangent. One of the points you said a little later, but I'll park that for a second with your permission.
Sure.
On the first part, I also attended many online meetings where people might ask you to scan a QR code or do something and go to a website and then participate over there and then come back to the room. And what I noticed was for every one person who followed the instructions on Zoom, 3 people would get lost, and then they would put something in the chat, and then the instructions for the QR code and stuff would get buried in there, and then the guys who went to the other browser would be lost and not find their way back to the room. But all of it was like, John, you and me meeting, and you about to tell me about the fact that your child had gone to Rensselaer, and I say, no, hang on, John. This is a meeting space. If you're talking personal life space, we're going to go to that room and talk about it. And if you want to give me your opinion, there's a ballot box outside next to the cafeteria. I wouldn't do that, right? It would be outright weird, but we do that online because we're like, hey, what's the problem? It's just a couple of clicks. It's not just a couple of clicks. It's all about friction. So our central mantra, so to speak, is not just inclusivity, but frictionless inclusivity, because you're not really inclusive and counting the audience if you're putting a whole bunch of hoops and loops that they need to somersault through and do browser gymnastics just to tell you what they had for breakfast. You need to make it easy, right? So go with the flow, go. So therefore in Zoom, it's working off the Zoom chat, and the best way to engineer that in the most absolutely frictionless way possible was through the streamer live joining like it has in the session as a bot. The way to do it with YouTube is for streamer live to join the YouTube live session through an API. With Microsoft Teams, it joins it as a chat. So it's a different engineering for each platform, which is an absolute pain for our team because you got to literally rebuild it for every platform. But the end user experience, if I may say so myself, is magical because the audience doesn't have to change anything in their behavior. They just put it in the chat. That's our forward instruction. Put it in the chat, and Streamer Live figures out the rest of it, which is how I think it should be. I mean, technology should do the heavy lifting so people don't have to change their behavior, right?
Oh yeah. Well, and speaking of heavy lifting, apparently you come with a fan club. I'd like to say hi to, of course, to Tina. Akul is here. Constantine Maring is here, and so they're all chatting along. I think they are all on YouTube. I may have to send the bot to YouTube here in just a second. I haven't done that live, so we'll decide if we're going to do that. I love the term frictionless interactivity, right? And I kind of want to give you back this gift if you want it. Of course, I come from Microsoft, so we have to put an acronym on everything, right? So you would call it FI, right? And if you call it FI, if you haven't already done so, right, it's kind of like pi, right? It's like you make a new term called phi, and then you could shorten it, right? Then in a conversation, you could say, no, we need more phi, right? We need more phi. Oh, now he's looking up his dictionary, right? Because phi probably has a basis of something somewhere, right?
No, I'm writing it in my notebook so I don't forget it. I'm writing.
Oh, even better.
I'm old school, my friend. I still write on pen and paper.
I do. I have actually a leather-bound journal that's from Amazon that was handmade in Seattle. The hand stamped. It was hand sewn and hand stamped. And so it is. I do bring that when I'm in an in-person meeting as the complete analog. But I'm also a OneNote fan. So I have over 20 years of notes in OneNote. So I can actually find any conversation. Like if we talked 20 years ago, Lux, I could find it if I use your name or if I knew the date or maybe the location or your company name, right? So those are all my search keys to find things. Okay. Frictionless interactivity was also the mandate too. I don't know if you knew this, of Eric Young from Zoom. He said, the reason why actually they said Zoom bombing really came about is that he made it too frictionless. Right, which is he really wanted to get to one click into a meeting, and he's kind of done it. Right, we've seen it too, where other platforms are not so good about that. Which means you got to put in 15 things or check your mic 100 times or, whatever like that. And that was one of his things, and then he had to back away from it because it allowed the wrong people in, right? So being too frictionless allowed people that you didn't want to be there. So then he had to install things like waiting rooms and passcodes and other stuff like that. So Tina's giving us a thumbs up and an emoji for phi.
And absolutely, just on that point you mentioned, that's interestingly a challenge we face as well. For example, we have a word cloud feature. And you just put it in the chat, it's going to show up in the word cloud. What if someone says something weird or something they shouldn't say? So then we introduce a profanity filter that's in real time looking for profanity. But then, and people who want to use profanity can get very creative about it and use some various versions. There's no way around it. So there is a cost to it, so to speak. So I can totally relate with the example you just mentioned.
Well, then we should do this now. Can I have can I have Stream Alive connected to both Zoom and YouTube at the same time? I haven't tried this.
I hate to say coming soon, but at this time it has to be one platform at a time. It
Oh,
can be
okay.
either
Okay.
YouTube or it can be YouTube. We can connect it right now to YouTube, and we can do that as well if you want to do it. But it will not take it from Zoom in that case. It would just be
Okay.
YouTube.
Well, for all those people that are on YouTube, right? See if you can follow along, and I'll take the words you chat and add them here. So now, you have a let's see, you have there we go. You have a piece here that is a word cloud. So what we're going to do with this word cloud is ask this question for you, right? This word cloud for you and I, Lux. What are some of the things that have to happen for a virtual meeting to be engaging? So here, I'll try and do this. Let's see. And again, I'm blocking part of the window, which I can fix here. Yeah, watch this. Yeah, it comes with sound effects. Good. Interactive. I put authenticity.
I thought of a new
FI.
term.
Yes, there we go. FI.
I just thought of it.
Tina says no worries. So here I'm going to put no worries on here. Let's see. What else has to happen? What are some of the fun? Yes, fun. I totally agree. Spontaneity. Can I even spell it? Spontaneity. Okay, good. That's. Oh no, I still misspelled it. Doesn't matter. Oh, childlike. Oh, that's a good one. I think that's a unique one. What else is there? Participation. Uh, let's see. Not one way. I guess the other way is two or more way. That's my new word. Two or more way. Oh, I love you to remove the dashes. So I've got this two or more way up here. There you go.
Oh yeah, I think you probably took that option of split phrases into words and things, but yeah, and I wanted to make two-way bigger, so I just kept typing two-way to make that bigger, which is the other
Oh yeah,
nice
yeah.
thing.
So that's a good one here. So like if I add another two-way, whatever we go. So like that's just cool. So that then if we do things like this, you can jack up some words. Again, I left multiple responses on for us, but you can also limit it to one response depending upon what you're trying. If you really wanted like a single response from the group. Now let me add this one piece that's on here too. Hold on, let me kind of see if I can zoom in on this. So I'm gonna zoom in way here on the bottom left, on the bottom right here. Okay, let's go ahead now, Lux. Just chat a lot, right? Let's see. Um, Amazing, right? Good speakers. Content is king. All right, connection is queen. Okay, so there's this engagement now meter above my head. Talk to me about what that is, Lux, and how did that come about?
So the logic was most people are not like you, John, where they have an entire sea of monitors where they know everything's happening and an amazing setup. So for the people who are not John Chen, they just have one monitor, and I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at the comments pouring in, and I'm wondering whether I should continue this interaction. Are people still chatting? Have they stopped? So that little engagement meter is almost like a temperature check on the chat that automatically calibrates to tell you whether the chat is hot or not. So if it's up there, it's like, don't stop the interaction. People are still typing. If it's starting to get cold and staying there, it's like, maybe it's time to move on down your run of show to your next slide or your next interaction. But it's a great visual way for a presenter to get a one-shot temperature check of what's happening in the chat.
What's the third interaction that we should really show if we can only show one more? We did map, we did wonder words. What's the third thing we should show?
I'm torn between, oh my God. Okay, I got three things. I'm going to put the question back at you. We've got polls, which are standard. Everyone has polls, but our polls have been described as polls dancing. I think that's an alliteration and some pun there. The second is we've got the transient thoughts, which is like sentence clouds. And I mentioned childlike. We've got choice circle, which is simply a spinning wheel that throws confetti and makes it fun for everybody. So why
Oh,
don't
we
you
have
pick
to
your
see. I think we have to do, I have not done this. Oh, this is spin the wheel of names, right?
This is spin the wheel of names. And actually, that's a good segue into what we're building next. Is releasing this weekend. So maybe we'll do choice circle because it allows me to talk about something that I think is pretty game changing. And I love your opinion on that.
Okay. And so what should the options in the circle be?
Let's say we've got a group of people and we're trying to decide what we should order for lunch. Should we order pizza or should we order what's the next one? Should we order
Well, let's get our ethnic foods in. What are some of your favorite ethnic foods?
I'm partial to Indian, no surprises there.
Yeah,
But
see, Indian, right? I'm gonna add Chinese food here.
I'm partial to Chinese food as well. So you got both my favorites there.
Well, you're in Jersey, but I don't know. You got some barbecue, I bet. Oh, dosa. Tina says dosa.
You familiar with dosas, John?
What's that?
You familiar with dosas?
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. Yes.
I'm not
Yes.
surprised. Okay.
Okay. And then we'll add this one. We're gonna go full Asian. We're gonna go Korean, right? Barbecue. So we'll get
Let's
both.
do it.
Okay. All right. So now we have a wheel here. Let's see. Let's just put the wheel on. And so I just click start interaction, and now I'm spinning this wheel.
Okay, what are we having for lunch? I can't wait.
Survey says it's Korean barbecue, right? Wait, wait. There we go. Okay, so yeah, so talk to me about this new feature that you have coming up.
So first, just sticking on that wheel for a second, people use it in some creative ways we never imagined. We have a professor in a college who puts all the teams that are going to present next in a case study competition, spins a
Yes.
wheel, makes one of them present, and then he goes to the, if you go to the top right there, John,
Yes.
and click on that, it allows you to kind of edit and knock off a slice. So he knocks off the team that just presented and then says, okay, now we're going to decide who of these next four are doing it. So he makes it a childlike game on, spinning a wheel, each trying to decide who's going to present next. And the students love it, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. There's the dramatic piece, right? Which is you don't know what team, and so everyone is nervous about that, about presenting, and so yeah, I think remove a name feature of spin that wheel has definitely been so. It's the randomness, it's the anticipation, and then the removing of somebody else. So now you know that there's only a remaining set of people. So those are all good challenges or a good way to use a wheel in that way.
Correct. And we're taking it in a totally different direction this weekend. So what's going to happen is, imagine we did this session. Okay,
Yeah.
let's pretend that Tina and all the other folks who mentioned, Constantine and Akul and everybody and whoever else has joined the session are all here. They've all typed in comments. And let's say at this point we say, okay, we need to find one person who's going to be the lucky recipient of John's book, right? How are you going to choose those people? Maybe you have favorites, John. I don't know. So I don't trust you. And what I want to do on that is spin a wheel of all the names of all the people who commented maybe at least once or at least twice. So
Ooh.
So what I could do at that point, there's this new feature that you're going to see in 3 days from now called winning wheel.
Okay.
And it's going to say, okay, who do you want to throw into the winning wheel? Is it all the people or all the people who commented only once or twice or whatever? It has to be at least once. Otherwise they don't get their ring in the hat. And so you can't pick favorites for who's going to receive your book. And you just say one comment and it puts everybody's name out there automatically. You can pull that anytime. Or you can say everyone who participated in that last interaction. When I asked people, where are you joining from? I'm going to take all the guys who give me their location and spin a wheel. And one of those names it ends up in, and that person wins something. Or maybe you tell them, hey, tell us a little bit about why you want to go to Austin or why you want to travel to this place or where you are from. So it's going to help with randomly selecting people based on participation and criterion. And you can take this in a lot of ways, right? Imagine saying, use hashtag this in your comments to be counted in, or comment at least thrice to be counted in, or participate in this interaction to be counted in. But I think that's when you push the boundaries of true interactivity and picking out someone and making it fun. So I'm excited about this new avatar of the wheel.
Okay, here are my comments on the idea. Well, number one, I love it. I think here are my suggestions for the name. Something like, right, an engagement prize, right? So again, and you could specify the different ways. I like that you can do that. One of the other things I would do is a common problem that people have when they use a wheel is to also have to remove the people who dropped out. So if it could cross-reference the list with the participants, I don't know if you can do that yet, but that would be really cool, which is, right, even though Lux chatted an hour ago, he had to drop out. So must be present to win might be one of the buttons,
Right.
right? Must be present to win. That's something that people
That's
do.
interesting.
But let me, so Lex, I don't know if you knew, I spent a bunch of time with Tony Robbins, right? You know who Tony Robbins is?
I've seen your video, and I saw that. I think there's one frame where there's you and Tony with the book. In fact, so of course I know who Tony Robbins is. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so
Yeah.
Tony has a theory that he found in research about the jackpot. Have you ever heard about the jackpot theory?
No, I haven't.
So it says this that if you give a disproportionate prize at some point in your program, you can really highly increase the engagement of people. So he took this to the nth level. When you go to one of his programs, everybody signs a ping pong ball, right, with your name and your number, and it gets thrown in. And when the energy in the room gets high enough, they do something that says bring out the wheel. So he'll reward the audience, right, for like having a lot of energy by bringing out the wheel and then giving away a prize, right? And then when he picks the ping pong ball out, that prize sometimes has been a Harley Davidson motorcycle, right?
Wow.
Yeah, that's a wow. It's like a $12,000 prize or more, depending upon which model they're getting. So they've had a Harley Davidson, they had a trip, they had gift cards, they had prizes to his other program, and so what happens is he doesn't do it often, but at different times he would do this, and the energy in the room went bananas, right? So this and of course when somebody won, it went bananas. Like somebody actually won a Harley, and then they'd come around with some story. Invariably somebody would have like a lifelong dream, or their dad passed away but owned a Harley, and now everybody's crying, and so anyway, so there's this theory of jackpot. It would be a great blog post for you. It's to see if somebody could use this, would give a disproportionate prize at least once while using the wheel, and there's then see if we can match it back up to the research that said your audience will become even more engaged, right? If they get a disproportionate award. Because what happens is too, and you don't have to do it all the time, right? One, get a prize that you can afford, but if you do something disproportionate, even if you give a smaller prize, like there's smaller parts on the wheel, um, people will do a lot just knowing it's there, right? This is why lotteries still work. This is why still
Right.
Keno or whatever still works, even though we know the odds are against us, Lux. But if you win the one time, if you're the multi-million Powerball winner, right? It's like life changing. And so,
Right.
anyways, that's the theory of the jackpot. Hopefully,
Thank
you'll
you. You're going to see a blog post on it at some point. Yes. Thank you.
Tina says it's the Energizer wheel. Well, let's get to this part too. So, speaking of next features, right? Let's go further on, Lux. What do you see as the future, not only for Stream Alive, but for virtual in general? Because right now we're actually at a pretty critical time, right? I do feel right now that I think that virtual has obviously decreased because of the number of people rushing back to in person. I do think there will be a dip. I do think there is going to be a return, though, for things like what happened to me recently. I had a 17-minute drive somewhere, but I left at 4 o'clock in Seattle, and it took me an hour and 20. Right. And so the real world is not all as cracked up as it used to be. Like, actually, that meeting could have been a virtual meeting. So I think we'll see a return after people get over the, in person and hugs. We'll come back to a place where when is it financially, correct to meet virtually, or other things like that. So, Lex, what do you see in the future, anywhere from 3 to 10 years down the line? You can also add a wish too, Lex, because I know you're I think you're a potentiality kind of person. What's a wish of something that would happen in the next 3 to 10 years in virtual?
I think what you raise is a very, very pertinent point in terms of the move back to physical, and of course all of us are craving for that intimacy of being with people in the same room, connecting with people physically and everything. Certain things like special interest groups and communities have always lent themselves much better to virtual and will continue to do that. I mean, take what you do, for example, virtual facilitators. There are amazing virtual facilitators in Europe, here in Asia, everything. They wouldn't fly down to a location for a session most of the time, but they can connect with you and learn things like what you're doing, I think, on April 13th, if I recall right. Those kind of sessions lend themselves best for virtual sessions because people are so distributed, right? Having said that, we always talk about how do you replicate the real world in the virtual world. I think there's a very strong case to be made for the reverse as well, replicating the virtual world in the real world. And you kind of alluded to that a little earlier in our conversation when you talked about a conference where we're all attending in person and we're whispering to each other and passing notes to each other, right? Here's my question, okay? Why can't we do that? I've been shushed in so many conferences because I don't know how not soft my voice is, all right? And I'm talking, and there's someone giving me, if looks could kill, I wouldn't be here right now. But those kind of conversations are happening. But guess what? I paid $600 to attend that conference, not to listen to 5 speakers who I could have gotten on YouTube or on a recording or on a webinar. I came there to talk to this guy sitting next to me, or to the guy sitting out there who I don't know who it is, right?
Yep.
So here's a fascinating thing. When we all come to a Zoom meeting, although everyone is quiet and listening to the speaker who's speaking, we're chatting away to glory on the side chat because we're not interrupting the speaker. So it's not considered impolite to have a parallel conversation in the chat. So here's my proposition. Why can't we do that in a physical room as well? Right. So what we did is when we created Stream Alive initially for YouTube, and then we did it for Zoom and then Teams, and the idea was go where the people are. And the people were moving to physical location. And then we said we got something interesting in this whole chat. So what we do for in-person events, and there's actually one happening, one that happened last week, another happening next week that we're personally involved in. We create a chat room that is in a temporal chat in that space and time. And we created it for the interaction so that, when the presenter asks, hey, where are you joining us from? People can type in the chat. They can type Miami and Seattle and New Jersey, and it does exactly what it did here, except the input is not the Zoom chat. It's the browser chat on your phone.
Yeah.
But here's what happened, John.
Yeah.
Since we had a chat, when they were not responding to a question, guess what? People are talking to each other. Right? Do you know when lunch is happening? Do you know what else is there? Who's speaking next? So these people in that physical room didn't have to be shushed anymore because they were chatting away on our chat platform, just having a conversation with each other as they would do online. And they got to know a lot more about who's in the room. And they're talking about the topic. They were talking about this. There was a parallel conversation happening in the physical world. Now, we didn't see that happening. We actually did it for a different reason, because we said we need timestamps on people's responses so that later we can stitch the Zoom guy. You asked me a little while back if the folks on YouTube and Zoom, and let's say in person, can they all be part of the same conversation? Absolutely. If you make everyone a part of a chat and then blend everything together into one big chat, why can't everyone, irrespective of where they are right now, be part of the same room, whether it's physical or virtual?
Yes.
So I think that's it's not one way or the other. Our theory is, as long as people continue to congregate in groups of 10 or more, which hopefully is not going to change as a human species evolves, makes it relevant and will have the pain point of people being ignored, right? I just think that there's one more point. Right? One of these teachers who used our platform came up with something very, very insightful. He said, do you know why I love using StreamAlive in my MBA classes? I said, because there's interactivity, and I gave him the usual. He said, no, because it captures 2 different kinds of students. The guy who's too cool for class, and the girl who's too shy for class.
Oh.
Right? Because the shy type can participate with a very, some people.
Yeah. Yes.
Their heart rate goes up and they say, is John going to ask me to speak now? I hope not, because I'm scared, right? Yeah. But chat is low effort participation, where you're still there, you're counted, but you're not really going to have the spotlight on you.
It's it's more frictionless than raising your hand, which is scary.
Exactly, right? Raising your hand is, you don't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but I'm still counted. I have an opinion. I have something I want to say, but I don't want to be in the spotlight. And the person who's too cool, that's been a fantastic insight for us. We've had so many sessions where people, for example, the maps question, people have been typing answers like Xanadu and Wakanda and things like that. So we're actually putting Easter eggs into the product now, where it maps out Wakanda, and next time it's going to throw up a bunch of panthers and stuff when you type Wakanda and things like that. Childlike and fun, right? I just think the nice thing about the pandemic is it kind of reminded us that we are humans. It allowed us to come into meetings sometimes in our pajamas, with holding our kids, holding our pets, not entirely being buttoned up and stuff.
Yes.
And I worry that we're going to lose that when we go back to in-person meetings. And hopefully you retain a bit of that, because that informality, that childlike nature, I think is what makes for even better meetings, whether virtual or physical.
Well,
Sorry, I've gone all over the place, but hopefully.
Well, I totally agree with that. The authenticity now that that you can do things, which is you get a little window into everybody's life. So I was a pizza driver. I was a pizza delivery driver, and that was actually one of the cool parts of the job is that I would see 3 minutes of everyone's life in a night. And
Wow.
you would see crazy stuff, right? You would never know, right? When you just peek through the door, you would get a sight and you could like kind of imagine what the scene was. So there's a level of authenticity I think that is correct because we got a window into everyone's home as opposed to their office where you can hide behind your quote unquote professionalness. I want to give a shout out to all the early event profs where Twitter, right, where wasn't in this dynamic 10, 20 years ago was this back channel, which is that everyone who was cool basically got on Twitter, and while the conference was running, Twitter was the back channel chat, right? So that's why a hashtag was useful. I almost only was on Twitter while I was at a conference. Like I didn't like Twitter in a non event context because it was like random, right? But now I was joined together with people. I would do that, and I actually became the number one tweeter at a MPI conference that was in Vancouver, BC, and I wasn't even paid to do it. Right, I just
Wow.
looked. I just tried to figure out. I wasn't even on cell signal too, because I came from the U.S. to Canada. I was on a plan that didn't have it, so I only did it off of Wi-Fi. So it made it even that more amazing. But they had a leaderboard for tweets, and I was at the top, and so that's how it used to be done. So I do believe that chatting aspect, that the great parts of virtual and hybrid are there. You'll love this term that my friend Jimbo Clark made, right? And that term is phygital.
Right.
Something physical or in person and something digital. Right now, there's this not even hybrid, but there's a blend of things that you could do. And I think live chatting at a in-person meeting is like a phygital type activity. And the last piece I'm going to add to that, Lux, is choice. It would be so great to have so many choices to participate in that program, such as in person, right, virtual, at the same time, and also asynchronously later, but still reading the chats of everyone else and then adding your chats later, even so that they start to culminate so that people who watch after that see both chats, right, and they're merged as one, so it continues to look like one collective experience. Lex, with the last thing that we have, if people only remember one thing from this interview with you, Lux, what would that one thing be?
I'm going to ask them to remember the name Streamalive and hopefully go to streamalive.com. We'd love to see more people make meetings frictionless, inclusive, fun. And, I think the early adopters will pave the way for all of us to interact much, much better in groups. So I think we need a lot more of that as we go into a phygital world and, ways for people to continue to showcase their authenticity. That is a word I was looking for, authenticity, right? And
Authenticity.
yeah.
Yeah, I just completely agree. How can we get even more authenticity into virtual? I think that's one of the things that we'll see going forward in the next few years, and I think that's what's going to make virtual meetings better with that. But Lux, thank you so much for showing Stream Alive again over the last few years. I haven't seen anything like that, so that's why I'm really excited to have you on the show and to see the interaction where you bring chat alive. I think that's really amazing. All I can say is connect it to Twitch with one of the gamers, Lux, and see what happens. Right, that's one of the fastest moving chats that I know about today. Lux, where can people find you at?
Best place is, you mean personally or the company or both
Or
or?
either one. Like, oh, well, we got a link to your company link tree here. So if you're in the comments or you see the post here, you can make sure and click that link there. And of course, Lux is at streamalive.com, right, Lux?
That's correct. Yeah. So Linktree/Streamalive is everything about the company. Linktree/Lux Narayan is where you can see my cringeworthy efforts of stand-up comedy and things like that. So yes, both of those Lux.
Stand-up comedy. Oh my gosh, that's another show. All right, Lux, thank you so much for your time and thank you for sharing this amazing tool called Stream Alive with us.
Thank you so much.
All right, this is John Chen. We've been hanging around with Lux from Stream Alive. I hope you enjoyed that demo. Again, bringing the chat alive onto a graphic piece that you can share with people in real time. solving one of the challenges is like, how do we acknowledge a group when the chat is blowing up? So with that, I want to say thank you too to all the people who are watching here on YouTube. Again, Tina, who else do we have? We have Tina, Kara, Constantine, and a few others. So make sure and check it out, streamalive.com. By the way, make sure and hit subscribe or follow or join or whatever it is here if you want to make sure and see the next set of interviews here on Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. We'll see you next time.
Don't we start people and keep